At the age of 29, I got arrested for 3 crimes that I didn't commit. I was convicted of 2 counts of capital murder, and I was sentenced to death. We have a system that treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. I am a witness of that now. I'm a statistic of that. The fact that I was black, I was vulnerable, and didn't have the money to hire a decent defense, it cost me 30 years of my life. I think we need an overhaul in the system, and I go out and I try to tell young people, since my generation failed to do what they should have done, I'm asking you to do what we should have done. And I hope by telling my story, they can say, we will never allow that to happen again. I was first charged with first-degree robbery, first-degree kidnapping, first-degree attempted murder. And once we got to the police station, I asked the detective what was I being arrested for. And finally he came back and opened the cell and said, I have good news and bad news. And the good news is we no longer going to charge you with first-degree robbery, first-degree kidnapping, first-degree attempted murder. And he said, but the bad news, we decided that we're going to charge you with 2 counts of capital murder. And I said, but I haven't killed anyone. And he said, I truly believe you, but one of your homeboys did it, so take this rap for your homeboy. I couldn't believe that a person that wore a badge didn't care about the truth and didn't care about arresting an innocent person. And I was maybe the wrong one, but the right color. That's the system that we have, and that's the system was back then, and it's the same system today. I'm trying to get people to realize that we have a broken system and we need to fix it. And I share my story with them because that same system that I'm talking about is the system that put me on death row for 30 years. Prison itself is hell. I don't think nobody can understand what it's like to be in a matchbox where you burn up in the summertime and you freeze in the winter, where you are degraded to the lowest term. As much as I can use my mind to escape, I cannot escape those memories. How you just sitting there, laying there, and all of a sudden 5 or 6 guards show up at your cell and holler shakedown. Take stuff that you know personally, your mom pictures, letters, and destroy it just because they can. It was my mom letters that I found pleasures in. Read them a week later, a month later, and for them to just come and destroy them, it's like they took a part of me every time. With my mom passing, those letters meant more to me than anything. The thing that I thought was keeping me alive was the hatred that I was having for the men that did this to me was the very thing that was killing me. And I knew that wasn't what I wanted. That wasn't who I was. And so I began to pray and ask God to remove that anger, that hate from my heart that I had for those men. In order for me to live, in order for me to be free, I had to forgive them. It wasn't about them. And I've learned that forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about you. And so that's what I did. All the inmates used to talk about Brian Stevenson. Finally, I wrote Brian Stevenson a personal letter and asked him, would he consider becoming my lawyer? And for the first time, I had a black lawyer. And I felt, okay, someone that looks like me. Now maybe we'll get this ball game to rolling. The average stay on Alabama death row is about 15 years. For whatever reason, God saw fit to keep mine 28 years. Finally, we decided that we would file to the United States Supreme Court. And when the United States Supreme Court ruled on my case, they sent it back to Alabama. Then and only then did the prosecution knew that he was not going to be able to win this case, and therefore Alabama dropped all the charges. I never allowed my mind to say, "You're going home." And Brian Stevenson said, "Ray, the court is going to release you. You're going home." And I remember just kneeling down on the floor and crying. April the 3rd, 2015, at 9:30 sharp, I walked out to a world that I hadn't seen in 30 years. Walked out to an audience that my mom wasn't in. And although she wasn't there to welcome me home, I had visualized that she had cooked all of my favorite food, and it was one of the most gratifying days that one could ever have. After 30 years, you finally set free. It's bittersweet. The sweetness of it is that I'm free. But at the end of the day, I still realize that we have men and women that is in captivity. I want to do everything that I can to abolish the death penalty. My mom would have been there for me regardless of any circumstances. I should have been allowed to at least say, "Rest in peace, Mom." This is the only way that I can come and just have a conversation with her and tell her that I'm sorry that I wasn't there for her when she needed me the most. People look at the years they took. They don't look at what else they took. They took away my ability to father a child. Really, they took my legacy, and that was to pass it on down to my children. The state of Alabama have yet to even apologize. The state of Alabama could never make me whole. I would not allow what the state of Alabama won't do stop me from being the good person that my mom brought me up to be. My goal is to try and educate people more so than anything that we don't need a death penalty in this country. I want young people to realize that justice is not blind. She knows what race you are, she knows what gender you are, she knows what college you attend, she knows what neighborhood you live, she knows everything she needs to know about you. She even knows how much money you have in the bank. And when you find yourself in her courtroom, it have already been determined by those things that she already know whether or not you're gonna be found guilty.
Let's give him a great Laurel High School welcome, Mr. Anthony Ray Hinton.
I have no choice but to go out and talk about a broken system, because I don't want one of you to fall into that system that I fell into. I come here today to ask you, where is my justice? Who can give me justice? Where do I get justice from? I want them to learn that unless they get up and start fighting for a system that is badly broken, this is a system that they're going to inherit. And I feel truly sorry that we, my generation, didn't care enough to fight for a system to make it fair for everyone. We need young people who is dedicated in becoming judges, dedicated in becoming prosecutor. And I tell lawyers, you got to do a better job. You chose this profession. And so that's what I love doing. And I truly believe that I have made a difference. And because I get letters sometimes, email from young people saying, "Mr. Hinton, I promise you that I'm going to college, and I'm gonna stay in college, and I'm gonna become someone that makes a difference." And so to me, it's worth that. To be able to get up and walk out that door and stand outside as long as I want, and give me great satisfaction to know that I do have some control and freedom over my life. It's hard to take 4 years and do away with 30 years. And so I take one day at a time, one second at a time,